Starting in on round number 12 here at Magic Spotlight's Secret Lair here at SCG-Con Indianapolis. We have Deanthony Davis on the play with 5-color Creativity against Burke Methena on Azorius Affinity. Fetch land and a pass for Davis. Methena's going to open up on a bridge and a couple Moxen. Maybe. We're going to hold on the Opal here. Ooh, Davis is actually going to Spell Pierce that. Love it.
Yeah, and the nice thing here is that whenever your opponent is playing out cards like Moxen, in some ways, Davis's hand is really forced. Spell Pierce drops off a cliff when your opponent plays a couple of 0-mana artifacts that produce mana as well.
Serious diminishing returns, like you're saying. Also, if Davis wants to use the mana on future turns, spending the Spell Pierce now is certainly ideal, as you see a shock for stopping on a turn 2. And there is Renin 6. Going to pick up that Bloodstained Mire right away.
Renin 6 a card that's fallen out of favor a bit in Modern, but it's no slouch.
Yeah. Once you have that fetch land, it's sort of drawing a card every turn, right?
Right, it just means that you are going to hit your land drop every single turn that it exists in the game.
Another bridge for Methena, and here is an Emery, going to mill 4. See Urza Saga, Captain Cannoneer, I believe a Lava Spur Boots, and a second Emery milled.
Dare I say, that's the combo.
Here's a nice one. Pithing Needle, part of that Urza Saga package, going to be cast and named that Renin 6.
Yeah, having main deck sort of bullets like this can really pay off in a big way, where you aren't usually going to sideboard this card in to try and tag something like Renin 6, but if you draw it, dog will hunt.
Davis going to play that Bloodstained Mire again. Fetch Shocking. Actually already down to 12. All 8 points self-inflicted.
Yeah, this is the type of matchup where it's pretty rare each player is attacking for 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. It's usually chunks of a ton of damage where you do get to kind of be a little bit, I'll say, a little bit more laissez-faire with your life total. Just a little loose.
On the attacking for 2 front, here is Fable of the Mirror Breaker and a Goblin Shaman as we head back to Methena. Going to start with a Tormod's Crypt and is going to Emery back Kappa Cannoneer. The man is just there. The Crypt got him there.
Okay, here it is. This is the point where Davis is threatening Indomitable Creativity, but also needs to have Indomitable Creativity.
Right, well, here's 2 more looks as Fable of the Mirror Breaker will go to Chapter 2. Davis going to contemplate some rummages. Makes sense to discard that Renin 6 and another card. Here's 2 more on the way. Notably, even if 1 Archon shows up this turn, the Emery is probably going to soak that up.
Okay, so hear me out. Hear me out. If Davis is able to make a swamp here, an untapped swamp, Davis can Leyline Binding and pay ward on Kappa Cannoneer.
That is true, yeah. Here comes the Goblin Shaman. There is a treasure token for Davis.
Ooh, and I love no blocks from Methena because this is also Methena's way of paying respect to just a lightning bolt.
Yeah. Yeah, like you were saying, the mana is there to pay for ward. Also, like you were saying previously, that 2 points of damage, it's not what the game's about.
Right, right. Though, on the other hand, the Shaman sticking around maybe represents an additional Archon of Cruelty.
True. There are 2 tokens on the battlefield.
The
play is second Fable.
Well, assuming there's another turn, that represents a bunch more looks.
Right.
At more copies of the Indomitable Creativity for Davis.
Right. Methena will draw for turn. Davis is at 12. Kappa Cannoneer starting as a 5/5. Here is Thoughtcast.
That's a nice 5 to start with.
Only for 1 mana here. Methena draws 2 cards. Here's another Thoughtcast.
That's not bad, but Methena really does want artifacts to try and just grow this Kappa Cannoneer.
You need at least 1 to get it unblockable, right?
Yes.
All right, Thought Monitor. That's nice.
That counts.
Once again, drawing 2 cards. The Kappa Cannoneer grows to a 6/6.
Now we're at the point where Methena is trying to weigh if this Emery is going to be better by generating mana, recruiting Mox Opal, something like that, or Lava Spur Boots for extra damage.
Right, Emery brings back Mox Opal. Cannoneer up to a 7/7. Methena plays an island as land for the turn. With 2 Thought Casts, a Thought Monitor, and a Draw Step, he has drawn 7 cards this turn. Here comes the Kappa Cannoneer, attacking for 7 unblockable damage. Davis down to 5.
Okay, so notably, Methena does have Metallic Rebuke mana available now.
It's bad news for Davis, who will fetch down to 4.
And this is the luxury of playing a deck that is just trying to attack like Methena's, where I would not say Methena's doing a synergy thing, but not exactly a combo thing, where you have to assemble the critical mass of specific parts. Mm-hmm. In this spot, we saw Methena with a lot of gas and 1 match. And this is just an explosion of damage.
Davis going to surveil with Elegant Parlor. Going to bin an Archon of Cruelty. That's actually kind of tough, because there's only 3 copies in the deck. As those Fables are going to go up to Chapter 2 and 3.
Appreciate the playing it up like this instead of just automatically flipping the first Fable.
Once again, double rummaging. Reflection of the Mirror Breaker online.
Oh, it's also correct for stack reasons, because now you have priority with a creature in play.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Okay. Tight.
Gives you that window to fire off the creativity. Arid Mesa. Both the Shamans rumbling in. 2 more treasure tokens.
This matters a lot. This pays for the first Metallic Rebuke.
Yeah.
Oh, not trading a Thought Monitor for a Goblin Shaman? That has me thinking that Methena might have 2 Metallic Rebukes.
Can be tough to pay for that. Davis going to fetch down to 3.
Okay, so it looks like this is just the pass back and then upkeep effects.
Xander's Lounge on the battlefield. That one, not of any consequence here. We'll see what those upkeep effects are.
All right, so this is a Leyline Binding from Davis. Notably, Davis doesn't have to pay for Ward until it has resolved.
Force of Negation, though. Yeah, Davis will pick them up as Burke Methena. Going to win game number 1 here. The Azorius Affinity deck. Kappa Cannoneer really putting in work this weekend.
Right, that card is so powerful. I know originally it took a little bit to get a foothold in Modern, and there was some talk maybe it sees more play in Legacy because you get things like Mox Diamond and other free artifacts, but Methena's made it look good.
Yes. And you're talking about how Methena's not really playing a combo deck. It's more or less a quote-unquote fair strategy here. Mm-hmm. Davis was also, unfortunately, executing a fair strategy there. But Fable, pretty slow in the heads up. What is Deanthony Davis going to reach for in the sideboard here to try to equalize that affair?
In some ways, I think Davis might even just be looking to get some cards out of his deck. We talked a lot about thinking that the card reprieve is cool going into the matchup. I don't think it's what this matchup is going to be about. Mm-hmm. Paw Patch Formation is another one where it notably hits enchantments and not artifacts. It also hits creatures with flying, which, yes, you are legally allowed to have it in your deck for cards like Thought Monitor and Tamio. Those cards have probably already gotten you at least a card in that exchange. So Davis really looking to have those cards hit the showers as far as cards to bring in. We already touched on Brotherhood's in going into the match a little bit. I think Veil of Summer is a card that looks pretty nice here. It's just a way to fight through some of the counter magic that I think Methena is hoping to capitalize on, given that Davis is actually planning to tap out a lot for cards like the aforementioned creativity.
Sure. Do you like Consigned Memory here, or is there too much blue stuff?
Yeah, so ironically, Consigned Memory normally pretty good against an artifact deck, but we just saw a blue artifact was the thing that took it down. Mm-hmm. And I guess you could try and tag something like the trigger off of an Urza Saga to hit Chapter 2 and get another ability, but I don't think that's what this is about. One of the things I'm really interested in seeing is either if Orum's Chant is something to do here to just prevent combat for a turn. That is a way to kind of buy a little bit of extra time for Davis that doesn't ask him to pay the ward cost on something like Kappa Cannoneer, which is fairly attractive in my mind. Mm-hmm. I'm also interested in seeing if Iona comes in. This is the matchup where I don't think Methena is particularly interested in keeping any of the cards like Portable Hole in the deck, because it really only goes after, not Urshisaga, excuse me, Rin 6 most of the time. So Iona just saying you can't cast blue spells anymore is somewhat interesting. I'm not really sure if that's what the games are going to be about. You don't want to hit Iona when a Kappa Cannoneer is already on the table. But you do put that card in your deck with quote-unquote monocolor decks in mind.
Right, the Cannoneer being the blue card that you would have to preempt. Also, a lot of the blue stuff you care about is counter spells, which if Iona is in play, that means they're not there anyway. But of course, Methena will be reaching for some more counter spells in the sideboard, so those Force of Negations. Is there anything else that stands out?
I think Force of Negation is really the big thing that Methena is going to be looking to here. I think most of the tools that Methena has brought are trying to tackle pretty specific archetypes that are not really this one. Consign of Memory more for the big Eldrazi decks, Damping Sphere for Stormy decks, or anything that's trying to tap for multiple mana in a turn. This sideboard looks like Methena is pretty worried about the Eldrazi-esque go-big decks, and I don't think that these are going to do a ton here, where Creativity is almost a mid-range deck with a combo finish.
How do you feel about Dispatch?
I think you could talk me into the first copy, maybe two. It is nice that it is able to go after some of the big things in this sort of deck that Davis has that really does not have that many real game-ending threats, but I don't love it most of the time.
We have some more events coming up here. If you're liking what you're seeing, you may want to come out and test your chops here on the Spotlight Series. We have 2 more of these open events. If you just have a deck list and you want to play, come out, see us on SCGCon Orlando or SCGCon Baltimore coming up. And if you're interested in the more serious competitive grind, find yourself a qualification for the regional championships at SCGCon Houston and SCGCon Las Vegas, also coming up later this year.
Yeah, and all of these events award Pro Tour invites. So if you really want to just kind of plant your flag, show that you can hang, you are among the best of the best, these are the best places to do it. Spotlight Series, just like you said, Ryan, you don't need an invitation to that. They pay out 8 Pro Tour slots each. But these regional championships, they each pay out 4 times as many invites per event. I cannot undersell just how great this is at making it to the Pro Tour.
A lot of fun side events, a lot going on. And to find more details on that, go to starcitygames.com/SCGCon. As players taking a look at opening hands for game number 2.
Looks like Davis, I presume, on a mulligan.
Have that confirmed. Looks like Methena on 7. See if Davis can keep 6. Now down a game. I have to figure that the Creativity deck does a decent amount of mulliganing.
And I think being on the play is so different for Davis. Right? This is a spot whenever you're trying to cast spells up the curve, just getting to play the first land is colossal.
Davis does keep on 6. Here is Jetmir's Garden. So Methena will start with a Mishra's Bauble and a Bridge.
Oh, is that Japanese foil Mishra's Bauble? Whew. Whew.
Land number 2 for Davis, Wooded Foothills. I also want to call out some nice aesthetics here.
I was about to say signed and Onslaught. Yeah.
Signed, Onslaught, original printings, all the fetch lands and shock lands we've seen so far.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Can't go wrong with lands illustrated by Rob Alexander.
No.
Like, that's modern to me.
That man probably struggles a lot playing Magic with how many lands he draws. Lightning Bolt's going to take care of a Tamiyo, and Davis is going to crack that Wooded Foothills down to 19. I would expect a Surveil land here, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on the texture of Davis's hand. Xander's Lounge would kind of communicate that Davis has something like Leyline Binding.
Stomping Ground is the find. Smells like a run in 6.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you.
Methena's going to use that Mishra's Bauble. Takes a look at the card that Davis draws for turn here. Shocking and Esteem Vents. That's different. It is Ren in 6, though, leaving up the mana for the Jetmir's Garden. And then Ren in 6 will pick up the Wooded Foothills.
Lightning Bolt, the main thing we can expect Davis to have available.
Here's a Mox Amber from Methena. Pithing Needle will be attempted. Gonna name Ren in 6.
Whoa.
No second land.
This Mox Amber, just playing it out, could be a huge liability if Davis has a Brotherhood's End.
Just a land in the past, though, for Davis. But Methena needs to get something going.
Davis is probably in his happy space if he just gets to play a land and say it is your turn.
Right. Spire of Industry for Methena, so at least makes a land drop this turn, but no further action as Davis will crack that Wooded Foothills. Down to 16 here. Dwarven Mine entering the fray.
Ooh, maybe it's time?
It's at least time for a dwarf token. I'll tell you that much for free.
Oh, yeah. Off to work it goes.
Hi-ho, David Strauss return. Oh, here comes the dwarf.
I love the posture from Davis. You see, put the cards in one hand, lean forward, combat. Oh, that's the posture of someone who plays Magic.
Ooh, and here is an attempt at Brotherhood's End.
Oh, with Veil of Summer up. I think Veil of Summer mana up.
Jeez. Metallic Rebuke is attempted, and there is Veil of Summer. All right, force a negation to catch that.
Whoa!
Get a pitch Thoughtcast.
I mean, this looks like a really successful turn for Davis.
Yes.
You got 3 cards out of the opponent's hand that just needs a lot of rectangles to function.
And Methena is still just not on the battlefield in any meaningful way. Once again, just a draw and a pass as we see Davis crack another Wooded Foothills. We're going to turn up the beatdowns? No, we're going to surveil. One dwarf is enough for now.
I respect getting the first one.
Yeah. Wooded Foothills surveilled to the graveyard.
There's also a point that I really have a lot of respect for Davis there, where it's pretty clear he's planning several turns into the future, right? Could have just jammed Brotherhood's End. It feels to me like he did not know how that turn was going to go and wanted to sandbag his only surveil land when he had more information about what the game looked like to inform that surveil.
Just another draw and a pass from Methena. Does have 5 cards in hand, but nothing doing as the dwarf continues to go to work. Methena to 17. Attempt at an Indomitable Creativity targeting that dwarf. 2 mana up for Davis. Kind of challenging Methena to have the rebuke here. There's the rebuke, and that does just work.
Okay.
Here's an Emery for Methena. That's a real card.
That's a big game.
2 Cannoneers, a Dispatch, and a Thoughtcast milled. A little ways off of getting those Cannoneers back, but if the Emery gets some activations, this is a real card. Lightning Bolt will take care of it, though.
Oh, are this beta?
I believe they are beta. Methena to 16 as the dwarf continues to go to work, and here is another creativity. How many counterspells can you have? And it's actually going to be Dispatch on the dwarf token.
Okay. You know, I was a little skeptical. Dispatch has looked like it is good here.
Yeah, it's less good if you have to go for an Archon, but if you can get the dwarf there, you know, that exact play there.
Right. Especially when your opponent might have things like Fable that you do just need to check at some point.
Here is a Mishra's Bauble for Methena. And just a pass.
This is getting close to that casting Archon point of the game.
Yes, and this Fable of the Mirror Breaker actually makes that even just all that much easier. Here is the Goblin Shaman.
You sit down and tell you a fable.
A little thinking at the end step, but Methena will just draw for turn. Mishra's Bauble still intact. Here is a Swiftfoot Boots and a pass.
Ain't Swift, that's lava.
Lava Spur Boots.
Got spurs.
All right, Fable went to Chapter 2, and just no discards. Goblin Shaman going to work. Treasure token on the battlefield.
Being this deep in the game and your opponent saying, no, my hand's great.
Yeah.
So tough.
I haven't made a land drop in like 4 turns, and this hand is nice.
Yep.
Mrs. Bobble's going to take a look, see how nice the top card is.
All right, Brotherhood's in, mops up all the artifacts on the table.
Bad news for
Ooh.
Methena.
Renin 6 is back online, too.
Oh, yeah, I got to pick up the land because that needle was gone. Methena draws, plays Urza Saga. Is it too little too late? There's Mox Amber and a pass. Methena is at 13, which is a life total where a Goblin Shaman, a reflection of Kiki Jiki, can cut through that pretty quickly.
Sure. Okay, look. The Xander's Lounge came out over another Dwarven Mine. I do actually think Davis has Archon in hand.
Well, that was a 7th land, and this treasure token's mana number 8. Wooded Foothills picked up another shot at it as well. Davis fetching to 13. Is it time to hard cast our man? There's Dwarven Mine. Even just the 5 power on the table looks strong. But yeah, here's the big tap.
Archon of Cruelty looks so good here. I mean, obviously.
Here, everywhere I've ever seen it. And that resolves. Thought Monitor discarded. Methena to 8. Facing down all kinds of trouble on the other side of the table.
Whew.
Methena will draw for turn. The Azorius deck does not have a lot of way of tools to play from behind, and there's nothing here. Deanthony Davis is going to force a game number 3.
And that's a really nice one where we saw Davis basically leverage his combo as a sort of tempo black hole for Methena and just made it so he was forcing Methena to respect the fact that he could make an Archon of Cruelty turn over turn, and we saw Methena having to just hold up Dispatch, hold up Counter Magic, and not really play to the battlefield in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked what the Dispatch add in terms of texture of what the Azorius Affinity deck can do, but there is a lot of pressure to actually do something proactive, and you were really calling out those Brotherhood's ends as being a powerful tool for Davis just to keep Methena off the battlefield, and they sure look strong there.
Yeah, in the post-board games in particular, this feels like it gets a lot fairer and more grindy, and Davis just having a card that says, this will get 3 of your cards every time I pinky promise, is worth a lot.
So we're not really seeing anything in the way of Tarkir Dragonstorm cards in these decks, but we have been seeing quite a lot of Tarkir Dragonstorm and the impact that this set has had on Modern this weekend. Of course, also a quite impactful set for Standard as well. If you're interested in picking up some Tarkir Dragonstorm, why wouldn't you be? Look at these cards. This set is awesome.
Right. We saw Voice of Victory clean up an opponent in the hands of Ben Weinberg just, half an hour ago or something, and looked amazing. We've seen Corey Steelcutter tear up multiple formats now, and we're watching a 2 Mox deck play right now. You can see Mox Jasper hanging out.
Waiting.
Great. The mana part of that card is covered up a little bit because of the graphic, but we know what goes there on a Mox. I feel like that card it's like Mox Amber, where it's a win and not an if.
It is a matter of time. And you can order your Tarkir Dragonstorm now at StarCityGames.com/TDM.
I also love that art of Craterhoof Behemoth. I think it was Magali that did it. It's just gorgeous. I know I traded for one yesterday when you and I were just walking around the hall.
So I have a question about Mox Jasper.
I might have an answer.
Yeah, so it costs 0.
Not a question.
Well, I'm building to it. The card, Corey Steelcutter, cares about casting 2 spells a turn, so a 0 mana spell plays really well with it. Was there ever any consideration to the cutter making dragon tokens?
No, we figured that card was good at dragging the opponent through the mud. And that was just like all you really needed it to do on that front. So, do you think it needs to be stronger in Standard?
Well, no. Anyway, we're underway here for game number 3. Methena will be opening up a really strong start here. Turn 1 Tameo and a Mishra's Bobble. Davis plays a Wooded Foothills. Methena will immediately cash in the Bobble, even though that card is very unlikely to be drawn. So just going for the churn there on his side as Urza's Saga is land number 2. A very nice start so far. Tamiyo goes to work, makes a Clue token.
And this is basically the ideal start for Methena.
Immediate cracking of the Clue and transforming the Tamiyo.
And the nice thing about this is it also means that once this Tamiyo gets rolled up here in a second, it's insulated from Lightning Bolt.
Yes. 4 loyalty here. And there is a Mox.
Especially when you know these games are going to skew more reactive post-board, just building Tamiyo up either towards that ultimate, which is extremely real, or just saying, oh no, we both know that I'm about counterspells post-board. You saw them last game. Happy to have this just put Force of Negation or Metallic Rebuke into my hand.
Davis fetches up a Jetmere Gardens, immediately back into the deck with another fetch land down to 18. It's going to be a Xander's Lounge, though. No Renin 6 on this turn 2.
Unfortunately, it looks like Tamiyo may have strayed too close to the ley lines.
Yeah, Leyline Binding is online from the Double Triumph.
Oh, and I love... There we saw Davis pick, are you playing around Force of Negation or Metallic Rebuke? But the Metallic Rebuke, in the world where Methena has it, means that Methena also doesn't get to play their turn, because they are forced to tap both of their lands and their Mox Opal, which eats the whatever value Urza's Saga would have done out of making a construct that turn.
Right.
Love that from Davis.
Here is Spire of Industry. There's a Saga to Chapter 2. Construct token waiting in the wings. We go back to Davis.
Oh, wow.
Pop Ash formation going to take care of Urza's Saga. Maybe.
Okay, I mean, this is something that we talked a bit about being more skeptical about Paw Patch formation in this matchup post-board. On the draw, this actually looks kind of nice as it's sort of just doing the turn 2 strip mine thing.
Yeah,
Sinkhole
earned a Force
thing.
of Negation.
Right, this is 2 cards, no matter how you slice it.
Cena also gets that construct. Big deal here, though. No third land for Davis. This is a deck that cannot operate through the full game under these circumstances.
Right, this is the situation where really Davis needs to have something like Land Brotherhoods in to continue playing the game.
Right. At all.
Right.
Methena is going to make that second construct and is going to find a 4th artifact here.
Double checking what this is about.
You know, we've seen Pithing Needle be a factor here. We talked about Ether Spellbomb being a good find. There's plenty of value finds here. And Lava Spur Boots.
Made for walking.
Oh, yeah. That's just what they'll do. Metalcraft online, so the mana already there to equip the boots. Methena possibly able to contribute some more artifacts to the battlefield before combat, though.
Right now, you can tell that Methena is thinking about a really sequencing-intensive decision.
Land is Urza's Saga. Equip with the boots. Here are the beatdowns.
9?
That's half of Davis's life total. And here is Emery. And back to Davis. Even with a third land on Brotherhood's End, I like that Emery kind of splits up what the Urza Saga, what a theoretical end would actually be able to disrupt.
Yep.
It's land number 3 for Davis does show up. It's Arid Mesa. Does he have a play?
He has to do something from here. I doubt he kept the hand on the back of Binding Paw Patch formation 2 lands.
Right.
It begs the question, what are the other spells that he kept? And there's also the interesting question where you have to ask yourself, if this isn't Brotherhood's End, how is Davis supposed to navigate from here?
Davis definitely going to give it a think. If there's a version of this game that he wins, how he plays this turn is going to be a fundamental aspect of it, as he will fetch down to 6.
Right, this is the match. Whoa.
Sacred Foundry found.
Okay.
And a pass. Up to something, some kind of instant speed shenanigans, perhaps, as Urza Saga ticks to 2 for Methena.
All right. So, Thought Cast, the first thing that Methena's going to kick things off with Orm's Chant kicked the follow-up from Davis. Okay! I don't hate it.
Yeah, then that resolves. There's going to be no more spells, no attacks this turn.
Especially when you're on the draw, it really feels like Davis is just saying, no, I just need to get my Archons into play. And if I can maneuver a game to that point, I think things will be fine, and the number of cards we each have doesn't matter as much.
So no more action there. Methena passes back, does have mana at the ready to make another construct. See what, if anything, Davis can do here. He's already missed a land drop earlier in the game, but here is a land. He will fetch to 5.
All right. Dwarven Mind the Git, and here's the dwarf off to work. Creativity!
There's a real question as to whether one Archon is enough at this point. As you see, the creativity does resolve.
Hope it's not Iono for Davis's sake.
There is Arcana Cruelty. Gonna be a shuffle at will. Put a trigger on the stack. Emery pretty quickly goes to the bin.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, it's not nearly as large as the constructs.
I'm not sure what Davis is looking for. I think Davis is facing lethal.
Sure looks like it as a third construct enters the battlefield, and yeah, that is all Methena needed to do. Burke Methena advances to 11-1 on Azorius Affinity, pacing the field here.